the dark side of being a dark chosen one, and why it's a huge blessing. There's a truth that very few are willing to speak, let alone live. A truth so raw, so misunderstood, so cloaked in paradox that most people run from it the moment it begins to reveal itself. But you didn't come here to run. You came here to remember. And the truth is this: if you are a dark chosen one, the path will not look like the one sung about in soft spiritual songs or lit up with angelic white light. It will not be comfortable, predictable, or universally accepted. It will hurt. It will strip you of your illusions. It will test the very structure of your identity. Not because you are lost, but because you are called, and to answer that calling, you must first walk through the dark. Being a dark chosen one is not an aesthetic. It is not a trend. It is a soul agreement forged in dimensions beyond this one. And when that agreement activates, your life begins to unravel in ways that feel personal but are actually surgical. Everything that is false, everything that is shallow, everything that is not aligned with your soul's blueprint is removed. Not gently, but precisely. And in that removal, you begin to meet the real you, not the version the world applauded, but the one buried beneath layers of survival, performance, and programming. That meeting is sacred, but it is also terrifying.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The dark side of being a dark chosen one begins with isolation, not just solitude but energetic exile. Suddenly people drift. Conversations feel hollow. You can't relate to your old circle. You feel like you're living in a different reality, even if you're in the same room. You're not imagining it. You are in a different frequency. And that frequency is not yet widely inhabited. So you begin walking alone, not because you want to, but because you must. And in that aloneness, your mind starts to scream. It clings to old identities. It tells you you're failing, broken, forgotten. But what's really happening is initiation. You're being emptied to be filled with something far greater, your true power. And here's where it gets deeper. As a dark chosen one, you will become a mirror, not the kind that flatters, the kind that reveals. Your presence will awaken people's shadows, even when you say nothing. You'll trigger others by simply being. You'll be misunderstood, misjudged, even villainized for truth you didn't speak but simply embodied. And that can feel crushing, especially when all you want is connection, understanding, peace. But here's what you must understand: your soul didn't come here to be liked. It came here to disrupt. And sometimes disruption wears the mask of rejection. But rejection is not the wound, it's the activation. The heaviness you carry isn't just your own. It's ancestral. It's collective. You were born into a bloodline that needed you to alchemize the unspoken. You carry codes that were dormant for generations, and they can only activate through pressure, through darkness, through the path most people avoid. That's why your pain has felt so deep. That's why your emotions are so intense. It's not because you're unstable, it's because you're attuned. You're not just feeling your own pain. You're feeling everything the world has buried. And your job isn't to drown in it. Your job is to transmute it. Let me ask you something most people never dare to face. What if the very thing you've been trying to heal isn't a wound, but a gift in disguise? That's the paradox of the dark chosen one. The very traits you thought disqualified you, your sensitivity, your rage, your loneliness, your darkness, those are the exact keys to your purpose. But only if you stop fighting them. Only if you stop trying to be light and start being true. Because truth is what cracks the matrix. And your truth is not soft. It's sharp. It cuts through illusion. It burns away the fake. It demands realness. And that's why it's feared. That's why it's suppressed. But that's also why it's needed. And then there's the fatigue, the bone-deep exhaustion that doesn't go away with rest. It's not physical, it's spiritual. You're tired because you're carrying a multidimensional load. You're tired because you're doing the work of many in a body built for one. But you're not alone. That's part of the illusion. The truth is, there are others like you scattered, hidden, quiet, but just as powerful. And when we start to find each other, when we start to speak the unspeakable, to own our darkness not as a flaw but as a frequency, that's when the grid shifts. That's when the world begins to remember. So yes, the dark side of being chosen is real. It's raw. It will break you open. But in that breaking, something holy happens. You become clear, not perfect, not above it all, but clear. You see through the lies. You feel truth in your bones. You stop needing validation. You no longer seek permission. You know who you are not because someone told you, but because the fire burned away everything you're not. This is the blessing, the sacred inversion, the part no one talks about until they've walked through the valley and come out the other side. You're not cursed. You're coded. You're not lost. You're being rerouted. And the very darkness you thought would consume you is the same darkness that's carving out space for your light to explode. The shadow crown, how to turn pain, rejection, and chaos into supreme inner authority. There's an invisible moment one most people miss, where the pain becomes too familiar to fight, but still too heavy to fully understand. It's the moment right before the alchemy. The moment when the dark chosen one stands at the edge of complete collapse or complete activation. And in that moment, there's a choice. Not a loud, obvious one, but a silent, soul-level decision to either keep identifying with the pain or to crown yourself in it, to stop asking, why me? And start declaring, this is mine to transmute. That is where your shadow crown begins to form, not in the light, but in the raw, wild, chaotic dark that no one else can carry but you. When you've been rejected enough times, when you've been misunderstood so consistently, when you've reached the point where even your own mind has turned against you, something starts to crack. And in that cracking, you find a silence, not the silence of defeat, but of presence. The kind of silence that doesn't need to explain itself anymore. The kind that doesn't ask for pity, doesn't beg for understanding. It just is. And from that silence, a new kind of authority is born. An inner authority that doesn't ask for permission because it remembers its origin. Pain is no longer just pain, it's proof. Proof that you survived, that you endured, that you were forged, not broken. The shadow crown is not shiny. It doesn't sparkle in the light. It's made of bone and ash and memory. It's shaped by every moment you didn't give up. Every time you cried on the bathroom floor and still showed up. Every time you were betrayed and still chose to love. Every time you were silenced and still found a way to speak. The shadow crown is authority born from experience. It is the mark of one who has walked through fire not as a victim, not as a martyr, but as a witness to their own rebirth. And once it's on your head, you don't need to convince anyone anymore. You just are. If you're still trying to prove your worth, you haven't yet claimed your crown. If you're still trying to be palatable, you haven't yet owned your frequency. If you're still waiting for someone to see your light, you haven't yet seen how fiercely it glows in your dark. This is not about arrogance. This is about embodiment. The embodiment of power that doesn't seek an audience. Power that exists without needing to dominate. Power that simply is because it has nothing left to prove. That's what the dark chosen ones are here to model. Not the perfection of light, but the realness of wholeness. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like setting a boundary without guilt. It looks like saying no without explanation. It looks like walking away from what you prayed for because now you know it was never worthy of your frequency. It looks like creating art that scares people because it's too honest. It looks like holding space for others without losing yourself. It looks like laughing at your own unraveling because you know it's just another layer being burned away. This is what the crown gives you, not control, but clarity. Let me ask you something most spiritual systems are too afraid to ask. What if you stopped trying to fix your shadow and started leading with it? Because your shadow doesn't make you unworthy. It's the part of you that's still waiting to be crowned. And when you wear it instead of hiding it, you become unshakable. Not because life stops testing you, but because you stop needing life to be easy. You begin to realize that rejection is redirection. That chaos is creativity in disguise. That pain is not the opposite of purpose, it's the pathway to it. Every challenge becomes an initiation. Every breakdown becomes a portal. And you stop asking for the storm to end. You start dancing in the lightning. This is where your energy changes. People can feel it. They don't know what it is, but they sense something different. You no longer vibrate with desperation. You no longer leak energy trying to explain yourself. You no longer shrink to be digestible. You sit in rooms like you own them, not because you need recognition, but because you recognize yourself. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And that remembrance is what makes you magnetic. Not flashy, not loud, but undeniable. This is the real spiritual flex, not bypassing pain, but building your throne from it. Not pretending to be above it all, but sitting in the mud with your crown on, saying, "This is also sacred," because it is, because you are. And now, you're no longer ruled by the world. You're ruled by your own inner sovereignty. That's the shadow crown. That's what no guru, no book, no system can give you. You have to earn it, not by being perfect, but by being utterly real. The divine disruptor, why your presence destroys illusion and awakens hidden power in others. There comes a point in the journey of the dark chosen one when you realize that merely existing in your truth is no longer a quiet act of survival, it's an energetic disruption. You walk into a room and the air shifts. People either gravitate toward you or retreat from you. They may not even understand why, but something about your energy commands attention, not because it's loud or performative, but because it's rare. You carry a frequency that is not aligned with comfort, it's aligned with truth. And truth, when it walks into a room that's built on illusion, becomes a wrecking ball. You're not here to be agreeable. You're here to be impactful. And your very presence, if you allow it to be fully embodied, becomes a divine force of awakening. This is not something you do. It's something you are. Once you've worn the shadow crown, once you've transmuted your pain into presence, your energy begins to operate differently. You don't even have to speak. Your silence becomes a transmission. Your gaze becomes a mirror. And not everyone is ready for what that mirror reflects. Because when you show up in your full power, you unconsciously invite others to face where they've abandoned theirs. You don't coddle, you don't enable, you activate. And activation is uncomfortable because it dissolves the safety of illusion. You'll notice people project things onto you. They'll call you intimidating, cold, too much, too intense, too deep, too fast. But what they're really saying is, you're showing me a part of myself I've been avoiding. You're not the problem. You're the catalyst. You didn't come to make people feel safe in their stagnation. You came to remind them of their capacity. And that reminder is disruptive by design. It's not cruel, it's sacred, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to shrink. This is why you must stop diluting your energy to make others comfortable. Because every time you dim your light, you rob someone of their own awakening. Every time you second-guess your intuition, you delay the frequency shift you were designed to initiate. You are not here to blend in, you are here to crack open. And yes, that means being misunderstood. It means being judged. It means being feared. But it also means being remembered. Because once someone meets your frequency, they can't forget it. Even if they run from it, they felt something real. And that seed will grow, even if it takes years. Let me ask you something that only someone walking this path can answer honestly. Can you handle being the one who awakens others, even if they turn on you for it? Because that's the real cost of carrying the codes. You become the storm and the stillness, the sword and the sanctuary. You are both the trigger and the healer. And not everyone will understand that. But the ones who are ready, the ones who have been secretly praying for something to shatter their numbness, they will find you. And when they do, they'll thank you. Maybe not with words, but with transformation. That's your real reward. Not applause, not approval, but impact. You see, the world is full of spiritual teachers who soothe, but very few who shatter. And the dark chosen ones are the shatterers. We don't offer comfort, we offer clarity. We don't hand out answers. We dismantle the questions. We don't lead people to safety. We lead them to sovereignty. And that requires chaos before calm, destruction before rebirth, death before resurrection. That's why your path has been so brutal, because you had to embody what others only read about. When you've been forged in that kind of fire, you don't just speak truth, you radiate it. You don't just talk about awakening, you become the current that awakens others. Not by force, but by frequency. And the frequency you carry now, after all you've survived, is not something that can be taught. It can only be lived. That's why your presence speaks louder than your words. That's why your silence can shake someone's soul. You are not just a person anymore. You are a portal. And every space you enter is never quite the same afterward. So if you've felt out of place, if you've been told you're too intense, if you've watched people walk away without explanation, know this: none of it is your fault. It's your function. You're not broken, you're precise, you're not scary, you're sacred. And the more you trust that, the more you'll stop trying to be understood and start understanding your design. You were built to disrupt, to awaken, to shift the frequency of this planet in ways that can't be measured by metrics, but are felt in the marrow of those who meet you. And yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's heavy. But it's also divine, because you are not just changing lives. You're changing timelines. You are undoing centuries of silence. You are reactivating codes that were buried before this lifetime. You are not just a spiritual being. You are a cosmic disruptor in human form. And the world is finally beginning to feel you. Walking the earth as fire, why your dark frequency is the future of awakening. When you've walked through enough spiritual fire, there comes a moment where pretending becomes impossible. You can't fake small talk. You can't entertain shallow dynamics. You can't go back to being who you were before the awakening cracked you open. And even if you try, something inside resists. It pulls you back into your truth like gravity. That's the moment you realize you're no longer just a person trying to awaken. You're awakening itself embodied. You are not here to follow a path. You are here to burn a new one into the ground. And that's why your frequency feels so different, so heavy, so hectic. Because it's not light and fluffy, it's fire. And fire doesn't ask for permission before it transforms everything. You see, the future of awakening isn't about escaping the body, floating into higher chakras, or living in a bubble of bliss. That paradigm is collapsing. The new frequency, the one you carry, is about integration. It's about pulling the divine down into the dirt, It's about living the sacred in the mess. It's about being fully human and fully cosmic at the same time. And no one understands this quite like the dark chosen ones. Because we've lived through the collapse. We've felt the fire. We've learned to hold both rage and reverence in the same breath. That's the frequency the planet is starving for right now, not sanitized spirituality, but embodied power. You carry the codes of the new earth. And those codes are not polished. They're raw. They're ancient. They're disruptive. They don't fit into old systems because they weren't meant to. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to be unmistakable. You're here to walk the earth as fire. Not to destroy, but to purify. Not to harm, but to illuminate. And yes, sometimes truth burns. Sometimes presence disrupts. But that's exactly how transformation begins. By making contact with something real enough to wake the soul. Let me ask you something that only the brave can answer. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to tone yourself down and started walking like you are the frequency the world has been waiting for? Because you are, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a literal, energetic one. Your nervous system has been rewired through pain, your heart cracked open by loss, your voice sharpened by silence. None of it was random. It was all training. And now, you carry a vibration that speaks to the deepest parts of people, the parts they forgot, the parts they buried, the parts they're terrified to face. But when they feel you, something awakens, a flicker, a memory, a knowing, because your frequency reminds them of their own. And that's the real blessing of being a dark chosen one, not fame, not followers, not status, but impact, quiet, undeniable, multidimensional impact. You shift rooms, you alter timelines, you ignite dormant codes just by being fully yourself. And the more you walk in that, the more you become a living initiation. You stop seeking the divine because you are the divine in human form, with scars and laughter and sacred rage all wrapped into one. So keep walking, keep burning, keep trusting the fire that lives in you, because you're not just here to evolve, you're here to lead evolution, not by being perfect but by being real, by being whole, by being fire walking the earth in skin. And when you accept that fully, you don't just change your life, you change the planet. Now go walk like that truth is already known, because soon it will be.